Fantasy Formula One podcast. I am Paul. That is Ben. Thank you for joining our conversation. It is the conversation we would be having anyway.
Absolutely.
Hit us up on all the social medias at Fantasy Formula One Podcast or email us info@fantasyformula1podcast.com if you have any questions. Today, we are going to have Ben go over the race standings. Then we're going to discuss a race recap, a DNF recap, because there were some very... there was a lot of those. We're going to discuss the top takeaways. We're going to discuss Yuki Tsunoda as promised. There's a lot to talk about there. Baby RB, and then we're going to be discussing Williams' team. But Ben, go ahead and take us out. Start us out with the standings.
I will do one of those things. Yeah. So as of time, excuse me, at time of record, it is April 8th. Big race yesterday.
Oh, God.
And so we'll go P1 through P20, but as always, there is so much more to the story than this list. So we'll dig into it. But P1, welcome back, Max Verstappen. 26 points for this guy. Comfortable win because he is who he is.
Right.
So like we talked about last week.
Prospect or suspect, he's fine.
He's Max.
Yeah.
Anyway, so P2, Perez. Comfortable second place. So that's a 1-2 finish for Red Bull once again. It's a big accomplishment.
Yeah.
But man, it feels so common.
It does.
P3, Carlos Sainz.
Man, I guess you get better when your appendix is gone, man.
I guess so.
Grams,
and
right?
you know what's cool for him is he is the only one with a 100% podium record this season.
Oh my gosh,
So,
you're right.
Yeah, so that's a cool takeaway for him.
Yeah.
Leclerc bringing up fourth place. Then you got Lando Norris with McLaren. I don't know why that word was hard for me at P5. Alonso at Aston Martin, P6.
Yeah.
Russell, Mercedes, 7. Oscar Piastri, McLaren, 8. Hamilton in 9th with Mercedes. Yuki Tsunoda getting into points on his home race. Good for you, man. And that's RB Racing. Nico Hulkenberg with Haas for 11th. Lance Stroll with Aston Martin for 12th. Magnussen, what's I'm blanking on his first name.
Kevin Magnussen.
Kevin, not that I needed to say it, but yeah, Kevin Magnussen, P13, Haas. Valtteri Bottas, 14, Kick Sauber. Ocon and Gasly hitting P15 and P16 for Alpine. Our countryman Logan Sargent, P17. And then you got Zogan Yu, Daniel Ricciardo, and Alex Albon for Kick Sauber, RB, and Williams coming out 18, 19, and 20 with DNFs. So do they still get ranked 18, 19, and 20 if they are DNF, or is it kind of they're all tied for last?
They still get ranked.
Okay.
And so I'm looking at their website right now. So the bottom run. So first off, it goes 16, 17, NC.
Yes.
Right? So they don't actually get a number.
But did Zogan Yu get a better NC than...
He did because he made it 12 laps before he crapped his gearbox.
Yeah.
And then Daniel Ricciardo and Alex Albon, Ricciardo was a nose ahead of Alex Albon when they crashed.
Okay.
So is there that, or once they were in the wall, Daniel Ricciardo was further down the track than Alex Albon was, but that's how they sorted that out. But I mean, and maybe there's some other way, but to me that's the way they sorted it.
Gotcha. But either way, they each get 0 points.
Correct.
So
they all get 0 points. Yep.
Okay. So as you know, if you've been listening to us for a while, you know that both Paul and I have the capability to go off the rails a little bit and to just completely lose focus.
Yes.
So I've got a challenge for you.
Okay.
I just ran down P1 through P20, and that took a lot longer than I expected. Can you give us a meaningful race recap in 120 seconds or less?
Yes. I don't have a timer in front of me.
Oh, I do.
Okay, cool.
I'm going to keep the pressure on here. Okay,
all right,
ready?
Let's do it. Ready?
Take a breath and go.
Okay, so at the start of for the FPs, RB and Daniel Ricciardo, they're going to get a new chassis in China. They think something's wrong with the car. Daniel Ricciardo's like, it's a chassis. Maybe it is, maybe it's not, but they're going to give him a new chassis in China. And now that he just cracked up his car, maybe he will for sure get a new chassis in China. All right. Logan Sargent, he's crashed in FP1, but it wasn't bad. And then there was rain in FP2, not much went on. Lewis Hamilton needed to replace his engine. Last week it was completely destroyed when he crashed and didn't do him much good this week. And then in FP3, Perez says something was wrong with the downforce on his car. Didn't end up not being an issue. In the race, turn 3, lap 1, Alex Albon and Daniel Ricciardo crashed into each other, put them both out. Zogan Yu retired lap 14 because his gearbox failed. On lap 43, Sargent spun out, but he did not hit the wall.
Hey,
good job, countryman. But he stayed in the race, and that is why he finished P17. He was much higher up. I want to say he's like 12, 13. He was fighting for the numbers, and then that was that. And then Ferrari was told to not race each other for P3 and P4.
Okay.
They were told to defend, work as a team, and not race each other, and Carlos Sainz didn't respond, and he passed Charles Leclerc on merit.
I mean, that's how he won last time.
Yep. Charles Leclerc was defending. All right.
Yeah.
They were told not to race. Sainz disregarded and passed Leclerc into P3, and Leclerc tried to defend but was unable to. And then Russell forced Piastri off the track and trying to pass for P7, and that was noted by the stewards. I don't know whatever went of that, but and that is the race recap. How was that,
dude? 139.
I'll take
Look
it.
Look at that.
All right.
That was very impressive.
And I tried not to get into the discussion because we discuss it nauseum. So there is the recap segment.
That was so good. And,
Perfect.
you know, I had no idea you were going to talk about Sainz and Leclerc. I completely missed the, hey, you guys need to cooperate. And
and they just don't.
And again, that was Sainz 2 years ago when he got that's how he got his first win was, hey, hang back, let Leclerc pass. And he's like, nope.
I'm sorry, man. As soon as I'm on the team, you're telling me, hey, dude, hang back. Don't get wrong. You won last race.
Yeah.
We want you to sit back and hang back and defend against, who was it, Lando Norris. And he's like, no, man, I'm not going to sit back and defend. And he like, his teammate tried to defend him.
Well, I think the key difference there is, real quick, looking back at our social media posts and seeing the clips of us talking to each other, I realized just how much I stutter. So thank you for your patience with me as I've beatboxed into this microphone inadvertently here. But with that, thank you. But the difference here is Leclerc's got a contract. Sainz, he knows he's off the team, and he's in a red Ferrari. Go for it, man! And again,
what are you gonna do?
I like Charles Leclerc. I feel like he gets a bum rap a lot of the time, and and this is another time where he's flying the team flag, but it's no one's fault that Carlos is off the leash until he lands with someone next year, and he will land. I mean, how could he not?
He has to.
But he's got to be his own best. He's his own advocate in this situation.
Yeah. So and it's understandable from a team standpoint. Then we'll go into because this is what we do. This is why we're trying to split into segments, because now we're talking about Ferrari instead of going on to the next segment. But this is how we do it. This is why we do this podcast. Right. You know. But so as soon as from Ferrari's standpoint, they don't care who comes in Team 1, P1, P2. Both of them are high up in the points. Both of them right now. Leclerc actually, I think before the race was the closer one to Max Verstappen in the championship points because Sainz was missing a race.
Yeah.
So from a team standpoint, you wanted Sainz to finish higher than you wanted Leclerc to finish higher than Sainz.
Yeah.
So for them, that's what the team wanted.
And what a wonderful problem. I'm blanking on who the principal is for Ferrari right now. If your biggest problem is you have two drivers who are both so competitive that one of them is going to fight the other for a podium.
Yep.
What a wonderful issue. Like right now, can you imagine being Williams and like just sitting at having coffee with the principal for Ferrari, and the guy's like, oh man, my guys aren't listening. They're trying harder to win, and the guy and Williams is like, yeah, that'd be nice.
That'd be great.
I'd like it if both of my cars worked well.
Or we have another segment for Williams. So I'm going to try. But this is something we don't have a segment for. The start of the race, both Red Bulls, qualified P1, P2, and if you watch them, they both jump off the line, and then Max Verstappen doesn't defend against Sergio Perez. Perez doesn't. He goes for it, and if for some reason Max didn't have the off the line go, Perez would have gladly taken it. But as soon as they get towards the end of the straightaway, towards turn 1, Perez doesn't back off, but Verstappen takes the lead line, and Perez feigns to. At first, I'm like, is he trying to pass Max on the outside?
Yeah.
He's not. He's blocking to block off that other avenue. So they get off the line. Max Verstappen picks his line. Perez moved to block the other line, so no one could pass him.
So Checo gets the perennial Cal Naughton Jr. Teammate Award.
He gets a Cal Naughton Jr. Teammate Award, and then they both trucked hard and they finished 1-2.
Yeah,
and so where Perez and where Red Bull is like, hey, you guys are 1-2, got it. And Perez, I truly believe, if for some reason Max, I don't know, he had messed up a brake, Perez just would have kept on trucking and it wouldn't have been a thing.
Of course.
But as soon as he realized, okay, we're going, Max, again, is ahead of me, he didn't fight him on it. Max got on whatever line Max wanted. Perez went to the other line, and you can see the gap formed as soon as Perez did that.
Yeah.
And then Perez was defending against P3, P4. Verstappen got out a little bit ahead, and then at that point, they were just off to the races.
Gotcha.
And he did it twice, because after the first turn, that was when they had a red flag restart when Ricciardo and Albon cracked up into each other. Speaking of that, we are going to discuss the DNFs, because I love DNFs.
Yes.
In Fantasy F1, DNFs matter so much.
Oh yeah,
So,
we'll hit that next episode. I got burned. I got burned on one of my. I had a great relative to from week 1 to week 4 now to week now. This is my strongest week ever. We'll talk more about that later. But one of my teams just got hammered because of the DNFs.
Yeah.
So
the first 2 DNFs, Ricciardo and Albon.
Yeah.
We're both going to have a segment about RB and we have a segment about Williams. So I won't dive into too much of it right now. But the important thing is this was just a racing crash. It wasn't an engine failure, it wasn't a brake failure, it wasn't anything like that. So as far as how mad we should be, no, this is first lap, bumping and grinding. People crashed into each other.
I was going to ask about that just because, both drivers, played the FIA company line where it's just like, hey, it is what it is, and I'm sure feelings were hashed out over, behind closed doors. Do you think Daniel Ricciardo was at fault?
Yes.
Okay.
And the reason is he, at the time of it looked to me, because I rewound. Now, keep in mind the stipulation here. I was a Navy pilot. I've never sat in an F1 car. All right. So
sure.
Here we go. But because it happened, they went in, they were coming out of turn 2. And so it's if you turn right in turn 2 and then an immediate left into turn 3. So it's more of a chicane.
Okay.
Right. They went into turn 3. As they went into turn 2, I'm sorry, Ricciardo went right, and basically, let me back it up. Basically, Ricciardo was looking to his left towards the inside of the turn.
Yes,
and he let himself drift out a little bit.
Was it Ocon he was watching for?
It was somebody.
He was watching somebody else.
He was watching somebody on the inside of the turn, and he let himself drift. If we look from here, it let himself drift out right to the outside of the turn. He let himself drift out.
Yeah.
To get ready to dive in for that left turn back into turn 3. So they turn right into turn 1 into turn 2. As they get ready to turn left into turn 3, Ricciardo drifts out, and with the intention of ducking back in. But when he drifted out, Albon had tried to pass him on the outside.
Sure.
And as Albon was there on the outside, they touched tires, and you're looking at Albon's cam. Ricciardo's right rear tire shreds. Ricciardo spins out, and Albon has no steering, and he just drives straight into the wall.
Yep.
And then that was that.
Okay, so so no malicious intent or anything of that nature.
No.
But would we chalk this up to negligence?
No,
or is it just lap 1 everyone's tight?
I think it's lap 1 everyone's tight, everyone's doing it, and I'm certain if you were to sit all the drivers in a room, Ricciardo would have to raise his hand to be like, yeah, that was me.
Oh, they've all been there.
But they've all been there. But and that's the reason why that's why the FIA is much more laxed about wrecks and about cutting people off and about stuff in the first lap.
It's almost an inevitability.
And you want it.
Oh,
we as spectators want that.
I mean, here we are talking about it now. Exactly.
So, so I really think they were just doing it, and Albon, he tried to push it. And if Albon hadn't been there, it wouldn't have happened. But also, if Ricciardo was like, oh, look, here's a guy on the inside, here's a turn, I'm going to go out and do this. And he just drifted into the dude, and that was it.
Gotcha.
So,
okay.
And so we'll talk about more about how to take it in fantasy land and what it means for the teams and stuff in a second. Then joke on you, dude. Lap 14, he lost his gearbox.
Yeah,
and that was a mechanical failure. That to me is something. Since we don't have a segment about Kick Sauber, it's like, man, what's going on with that team?
Well, from the slow pit activity to reliability issues. It's one of those teams. It's like, and do they belong on the grid? Absolutely, they do. But it's one of those. These are the most precise drivers, and probably and some of the best teams. But someone's got to be the worst of the best, right?
Exactly. And as soon as you're racing F1 and you finish, and everyone else is the fastest, but as soon as you get second place by 1/100th or 1/10,000th of a second.
Yep.
Sorry, bro. You're off.
The margin of error is so small, but you're gonna have people who are on the wrong side of that, and we get to sit here and criticize them.
And that's what we do. So, sorry for joke on you. and that was a gearbox failure. I don't think it's indications of anything wrong with the team. It's not like they're having multiple failures. If it was a power unit failure, then like I'm still suspect of Mercedes power unit since so many of them have been
for
going
sure.
bad.
Yeah.
But this is just a gearbox failure. And I think it was just like Max's tires, just something that happened.
Sure.
And that's from me being outside, not being privy to any of the information. If anybody wants to let us privy to information,
we would love to. Yeah.
But there we go. So that is our DNF recap. Everyone else is fine. And do you have anything else to say about DNFs before we move on?
No, I'm good.
All right, top takeaways. We already alluded to it. Max is back.
Was he ever gone?
I don't know.
No.
And that brings us back to one of my favorite topics is the suspect or prospect for everybody. And I want us to go through and talk about that at some point. That's actually in the F1 segment, which we'll do next, or in the F1 episode. But people are really quick to suspect Max Verstappen or suspect Red Bull if it looks like they're not doing perfect.
And in all fairness, it's right now we are in a season where if something goes wrong, it is so shocking, it is so jarring because the norm is, Max is going to be 12 to 20 seconds ahead of everyone else.
Yeah.
And then the race happens.
Yep.
So when that does not happen, that has become such a staunch part of our day-to-day spectator lives that it's unnerving.
It is.
But the reality is, and I think we covered this, pretty sufficiently last time, was things will happen to everyone.
Yep.
And again, this was his first last week was his first DNF in 40 races, two seasons,
something like that. Yeah.
So, but it was his card came up, but we're back to normal. He's back way at the front. Checo's at P2, and then it's everybody else's race after that
for sure.
So.
Okay, and then so we had the top takeaways. Next one, and this is something that I know we talked a little bit about off camera. Aston Martin, they're having some issues, and I know it was something I missed, but you caught. What I think it was Stroll said and live in his that they picked up in public. What was that?
He was talking about and I don't have the verbatim quote, but but most of you should know what I'm alluding to here, where he says. In the straightaways, it's like we're not even in the same league.
Gosh,
and so it's just a fundamental performance level issue. So it sounds actually very similar to what Mercedes has been going through. It's like the other teams have caught on to something from an engineering standpoint that puts them leaps and bounds ahead. So that they can't depending on the track, their level of competitiveness is severely hampered.
So with what Stroll said when he said it's like we're not competitive, we're not in the same league. Is that just him or is that all of Aston Martin? Because Fernando Alonso finished P5. However, is that due to his, and this isn't a dig on Stroll, it's the fact that Fernando Alonso is a multiple world champion, and he's that good that he's able to get Aston Martin where it needs to go? Or is it an Aston Martin issue, or is it just a Lance Stroll issue?
That's a great question. I mean, there is inevitably a skill gap, and I do think this is also another Aston Martin issue is the skill gap between Alonso and Lance Stroll.
Yeah.
It seems that the capabilities of the racers on every other constructor or on every other team seem to be much closer. Generally, you're gonna have Checo within a few spots of Max, even though Max is so dominant. You've seen a lot of Ferrari immediately behind Red Bull, in P3, P4, or P3, P5. But you're tending to see a much wider spread in Aston Martin between Alonso and Stroll.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting. I don't know necessarily what conclusions to draw from that, but I know that definitely impacts them from a points perspective as the season goes on, as a constructor.
No, that's true, and especially given where they were at this point last year. Last year they were the golden children, right? They were so highly competitive.
Yeah.
But then, of course, everybody takes Red Bull's lessons learned and modifies their cars, and now Aston Martin just isn't quite there.
Sure.
Okay, and then third takeaway. Mercedes is not competitive.
Yeah, no,
just to say it.
It feels like if you were to take a spreadsheet or a graph of Lewis Hamilton's post race interviews. Mm-hmm. It feels like he's saying the same thing every week, where he just goes, you know what, we did really well within the limited capability of the car.
Yeah.
I feel really good under the circumstances based on what our car was able to do at this point.
Yeah.
And it's a very polite way of saying our car sucks. I'm a better driver than this car.
Yeah.
And I'm not hearing any change in that tune. And you could see that more this week. He was complaining of pretty severe understeer, and he let Russell pass him up just because he was having control issues.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, he volunteered that.
No,
he volunteered
absolutely.
to let his teammate pass him. Which when that came out, I was like, "Hey, do you want to switch?" Like he was driving, and he was just like, "Hey, there they go." And he's like, "Hey, Russell's got the pace.
Yeah,
want to go and pass me?"
Well, and that's the funny thing. If you want to juxtapose Sainz,
Yeah. Right.
Two guys at the end of their contract, Sainz who's just like, nope, going for it, and then you got Hamilton going, well, here we are, go ahead, buddy.
He's like, man, we're on 2 different races, dude.
And
if
again,
you can squeeze it out, then go for it.
The crucial difference there is that Hamilton is taking Sainz's place in Ferrari next year. So yes. I wonder how much that plays into it, where it's like, I'm going to do all I can, but I'm also not going to be a psycho.
Yeah.
Versus Sainz going, I'm going to do all I can, no matter what.
And I'm not trying to sit here and say, hey, we were right at the beginning of the season when we made these predictions.
Right.
But we are correct, and that should actually be its own segment about what we early predictions were and weren't. But the prediction, or I won't say prediction. That makes it sound like I have a crystal ball. I'm not. I stated that since Lewis Hamilton was moving to Ferrari,
yeah,
he's going to push it. He's going to drive within the confines of the car. But if the car's not there, then he's not going to put himself in the hospital trying to defend for P9, right? And this race makes me feel that is true. He is being the professional about it. He's like, hey, man, I'm racing with the car. The car's not there. Let the teammate pass me. If he can squeeze another couple positions out of it, that's better. But I'm not going to go to the I'm not going to get airlifted for trying to block. Who finished behind him? Yuki Tsunoda. He's not going to get airlifted for trying to block Yuki Tsunoda. You know, like, come on.
And that's exactly it. And I don't think it takes a Nostradamus level prophecy. I don't think we can claim too much clout for saying like, oh,
right.
we told you Mercedes wouldn't be great this year.
Yeah,
this is Hamilton's 3rd year of disappointment, and I know they changed up their design again this year, but after week 1, he comes right out and says, this is the most disappointing start to a season of my entire career.
Yeah,
he's not holding back. So it's there's always room for improvement, and again, I go back to McLaren making significant changes mid-season last year. Last year
towards this,
that I don't know how many people would have called, all of a sudden they're on fire.
I would have won the Friends League championship if I had jumped on the McLaren bandwagon. The first 2 races they were good last year. I'm like, nah.
Well, yeah, because the first half of the season they're rarely even finishing in the points, and now all of a sudden, look at them. They are the number 3 team right now.
Exactly. Exactly.
But so that's always possible, but it's we're not there yet for Mercedes.
So, anything more to talk about with the top takeaways before we go on to Yuki Tsunoda?
No, I think I'm good on that front.
Okay. So, Yuki Tsunoda, this was his home race, and there's always, for anybody who's new to the F1 world, there always seems to be, so the FIA is a private company. Yes. They can do whatever they want. And it's always good for publicity. I'm guessing this is more your wheelhouse than mine. But it seems to be good for publicity. Whoever's home race it is, all the announcers, everybody really leans hard into this is their home race. Oh, yeah. Everyone loves him. If it's your home race in F1, you get a lot more airtime. Some of that has to be some of that has to come from him being in his home race, him having a good race, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, how are from a PR perspective, how are you not going to capitalize on, oh look, one of our 20 racers is actually the nationality of the location that we're racing in. Hey, this is the home crowd. This is who you want to rally behind.
Yeah. And they do better in their home race. They tend to.
I think it's arguable because looking online, in the U.S., there's a lot of hate for Logan Sargent, which is from the U.S.
From the U.S.,
which is kind of bizarre.
I think the U.S. just loves to hate.
Yeah,
at least our culture when it comes to somebody who's doing good, if they're not the absolute number 1 best,
sure,
then we're like, what the hell, man?
Yeah,
that's not me dishing my country.
No,
my country.
I think you're absolutely right. There's a lot of resentment for Americans when they're American is not number 1.
When they're Americans,
which is silly. But so back to Yuki though, there was absolutely a lot of airtime specifically for him.
Yeah, and I think it's positive. It's good. The in FP1 he got P9 finished. Which again, remember for the very beginning, you can't take too many conclusive takeaways from your free practices.
Right.
You can take away if things go wrong, but you can't really say, oh, they did good here, so it'll be good there. So he did P9 in FP1. He was one of the 13 drivers to even turn a lap time in FP2 because there was a lot of rain.
Oh, a lot of people pulled out there or stopped early.
Exactly. So Yuki went ahead and put in a couple laps, and he put in P4 for that, which is positive. And then he was P9 in FP3. And so FP3 was, because there was such a minimal racing in FP2, his FP3 was like basically a pre-qualifying thing. So everyone was going fast. Everyone was really pushing for times.
Yeah.
And so sure enough, boom, there he goes. He only finished less than a second off the pace in FP3.
That's awesome.
Which is great. And I'd have to go back and look at the stats for the other races, but he had a great week. And at least a great warm-up. So then for qualifying, he qualifies P10, which he gets. He beats Daniel Ricciardo. He beat out his teammate Daniel Ricciardo by 0.005, it looks like, of a second. I'm going to have to zoom in, but by less than a tenth of a second. We'll call it that. Less than a tenth of a second is what he beat out.
0.05.
Is that it? Yeah.
5 seconds.
Hundreds. Yeah. 0.05 of a second, he beat out his teammate. So kind of what we were talking about earlier, they're pretty closely marked. The cars are good, but is that a driver difference or is that a car difference? Because Daniel Ricciardo's talking about, well, he's unhappy with his car. He's going to get a new chassis. Definitely now. Sorry, Daniel. But, So anyway, so Yuki did have a strong, he got into the points, and I think that was great. No, I think it was great, right? So then starting grid, fine. He started out P10, fastest lap. How did he do? He had the 14th fastest lap of the race. So it wasn't necessarily like he got here and suddenly he did wonderful. He's still,
oh, sure.
What am I trying to say? Maybe that was the wrong way for me to say it. So he's not spitting out crazy times here, but he was, whatever it was, he got finished in the points and he got more competitive.
And that's rarely ever going to happen for him anyway. Of looking back on his career, and I think I owe the guy an apology because I've always been really wishy-washy on Yuki Tsunoda.
Yeah.
And the reality is, it's his 4th season. He has not been racing all that long in F1.
Yeah.
For some reason in my mind, I thought he'd been around quite a bit longer, so I didn't have a lot of patience for him, and so looking back, I was like, oh, okay, this makes more sense, as the length of time some of these guys have been around and been able to hang around.
Yeah.
I was under the impression that he'd been racing for quite a bit longer, and so he's only had a top lap once ever.
Yeah.
In his career, but again, he's also been driving the AlphaTauri /RB racing car, and that's going to play a factor there.
Yeah.
And what's interesting too is when he got his start, he was racing opposite Pierre Gasly, and then Gasly went over to it was still Renault, I think. They had just turned into Alpine Racing.
Okay.
And so at that point they brought in and at that point too. Yuki had been a rookie racer, and so Pierre was kind of the clear starter.
Yeah.
He was the clear faster racer with a lot more a lot higher ceiling of potential.
Yeah.
So when he left, they brought in it was Nick De Vries, and he was kind of a young upstart who was also expected to be the guy who's better than Yuki.
Yeah.
And he wasn't. And he gets kicked. He gets booted 10 races into the season. Then they bring in Daniel Ricciardo, who also breaks his wrist. Has some good showings until he breaks his wrist.
Yep.
And then
Liam Lawson,
who
did better than Yuki.
Did do better than Yuki, exactly. But then this season, it's interesting. We have always expected Yuki to be second fiddle.
Yeah.
But he hasn't yet.
No.
If you look at this season so far, he's got Bahrain, Bahrain 14th, Saudi Arabia 15th, Australia 7th, and then Japan 10th. In that span, Daniel Ricciardo has been 13th, 16th, 12th, and 19th. So he has gotten 0 points for his team.
Yep. And everyone's and we go in here expecting, well, Yuki's just going to stay being number 2. Nah, I would say he is the lead. He is the lead RB driver. Absolutely.
And it kind of makes you wonder, as kind of the feeder constructor for Red Bull.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna throw a psycho what if here. So say Perez does not strike a deal in this year with Red Bull.
Yeah.
He goes elsewhere. What if say he maybe goes to Mercedes?
Okay. try and be their flag driver. Yeah,
as a possible landing spot. So it would be Perez and yes, it'd be Perez and Russell.
Okay,
which would be interesting.
That would be interesting.
And then by some strange outcome, Sainz doesn't end up at Red Bull because why? But why would he not? But okay, so this is a weird what if? What if Yuki Tsunoda went to Red Bull opposite Max Verstappen?
Yeah,
and then you've got Liam Lawson for RB, and then maybe Ollie Behrman. So I'm gonna say goodbye, Daniel Ricciardo. The experiment to bring you back hasn't really worked out so well.
Yeah,
and now we're gonna have Ollie Behrman and Liam Lawson as RB racing. Yuki is opposite Max Verstappen.
That'd be good.
That'd be interesting.
That'd be interesting.
All this doesn't do though is it leaves Carlos Sainz without a landing spot, which isn't going to happen.
Isn't going to happen,
and he's going to be on a top tier team.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and with Yuki, and how about this? So this is here's your controversial topic.
Yeah,
ready?
Let's do it.
Ready for this? Here's the thing, because this is something that I him and Han, and I don't necessarily. So there's plenty of Spanish drivers. There's plenty of like European drivers. Fine. Yuki Tsunoda is the only Japanese driver, just like Logan Sargent is the only American driver.
I've got it. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, yeah.
I'm totally going to interrupt you. Aston Martin gets rid of the nepotism.
Yeah.
Drops Lance Stroll, signs Carlos Sainz. Then you got Sainz and Alonso. Then you got a cool Aston Martin team.
Oh. Yeah.
And
I think the fact that Fernando Alonso is finishing P5, that shows that the car can do it.
It can do it. It might not be there.
Yeah.
But it'll play.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and so again, that's sorry, that was my workaround to fit in my silly plan here. Because I realize Red Bull's not going to sign Yuki Tsunoda, but I got to give him more credit than I had in the past, because I know the plan was get Daniel Ricciardo back in a car for a while and then show that he can maybe be the Red Bull number 2 driver.
Exactly.
And it doesn't seem like it's happening.
No, and the field is just completely evolved from last year.
Forget
Everyone was taking notes about what Red Bull Racing did to their cars. Everyone evolved their cars.
Yep.
Max Verstappen, and I forget which race it was, but I think it was Bahrain. The time that got him the pole in Bahrain in 2023 would have only got him P8 in 2024.
Is that true?
That's true.
Oh my!
It was Bahrain, or maybe it was Saudi. It was one of those two races. But yeah, the cars are just that much faster now.
Yeah.
So if you take last year's, and how about this? And this is I'm trying to keep my examples on topic here, but you have the Manhattan Project for the nuclear bomb and stuff in the Second World War. All of the equations of how they got to that point, like there's probably some parts of it that are classified, but the basic equations as to how, from a physics standpoint, they got to there, are taught day one, class one at Purdue University, at least years ago when I was there. Day one, class one of one of the engineering classes, the professor sat there and walked through all the equations for the Manhattan Project, as from a physics standpoint.
Sure.
Doesn't mean you can go around making bombs, but But the part that I say for that is the ultra top secret information that changed the world less than a century ago is now taught to every 18-year-old freshman who walks through.
Oh yeah.
Thing. And now we evolve our knowledge from there.
On that note too, think of the computers used to calculate every calculation needed to get a man on the moon. Right. In the 1960s, how much more capable is this phone that, that I'm holding in my hand here? Yeah. This is.
It's amazing.
The leaps, the technological leaps and bounds, and the extent to which we push ourselves year in and year out, is astounding. So and I think you're absolutely right. That totally applies to F1 as well. The changes from year to year are unbelievable.
Yeah, and so now the issue is no longer how do you drive the car from 2023. The question is, how well can you drive the car in 2024? Right. And no longer, how well can you drive that compared to 2023 cars? It's how well can you drive compared to 2024 cars? Yeah. And it's always that new thing, always evolving. So maybe the way the 2023 AlphaTauri was set up, he was good compared to all the other ones. It was great. Now they have a new car against a faster field, and now he's off by 0.005 of a second. And now suddenly that drops him down 4 spots when that exact same time last year would have put him at P4 or something,
And these guys have to have insane reflexes and the ability to react to something.
Yeah.
And everyone's got their limit, and the speed that these cars are going and the expectations that that are placed on these drivers to factor in.
Yep.
What kind of tires am I on? What's the humidity doing to the road today?
Yeah.
And oh my God, what's the guy right next to me maybe about to do? And also the awareness that they have of who's in every position. I know they got someone talking in their ear now, but still they have to be aware of the strategy of these other 2 car teams.
Yeah.
And each of these drivers does have a breaking point.
Yep.
They've got a limit of what they're able to take in, factor in, and still perform.
Sure.
And so as these changes keep happening, it's going to take a new breed of driver every year.
Absolutely. That's a good way to put it, actually. I think that's a good way to punchline that is the driver requirements change all the time. And as soon as it doesn't work out, and as soon as you're no longer matching that driver, how long do you matching those requirements, how long do you hang around for it?
Yeah.
And the thing before we keep, and this is the rabbit hole we enjoy going down. So thank you for listening to our podcast on it. This is what we have normally. And we're like, we could do a podcast on this because we talk about it anyway. To bring it back to Yuki Tsunoda, a point I want to kind of bring up, and it's unpopular. It's a very unpopular, even question to bring up, is Yuki Tsunoda is the only Japanese driver.
Yes.
Logan Sargent is the only American driver. There's plenty of other nationalities out there. How much, again, I know this is unpopular to talk about, and I have very staunch opinions about it, and I can tell you my opinions, but what do you think about how much it does or doesn't play into the fact that Logan Sargent still has a seat and Yuki Tsunoda still has a seat is because of their nationalities?
That is a tricky subject.
It is.
And it's a perfect transition talking about, the breed of driver for F1.
Yeah.
Because beyond those response times and beyond those capabilities, these guys get out of the race car and they have to go on camera and talk. And it needs to be someone you can trust a little bit.
Yeah.
This needs to be someone who throughout the remainder of the week is doing interviews, doing press events, having their carefully curated social media.
Yeah.
And it sucks that is so much a part of the show because you want a pure racer. If you ever watched, again, not F1, but the Ford versus Ferrari movie.
Yeah.
Which that movie was supposed to be called Le Mans 76, but they didn't call it that because Americans are dumb and they wouldn't have understood what that was. The rest of the world would have understood, Le Mans 76,
Le Mans 76
or
knew about
666.
Yeah, whichever one.
Whatever year it was supposed to be. But the American audience wouldn't have had any idea what it is. We needed a big dumb title like Ford versus Ferrari.
And we're like, oh, cool, they're going to fight. Here we go. Yeah, no, absolutely.
But, Christian Bale's character, they refused to let him drive initially, even though he was the most qualified guy because he's not going to do well in front of a camera.
Yeah.
And that is the reality that we live in. So this is a very valid question.
Yeah.
And I feel much much more comfortable broaching it because we also have an American equivalent saying that I think is equally suspect. And I think the first time that came up as an issue for me was when Liam Lawson came in.
Yeah.
And was it Daniel? Yeah, Daniel Ricciardo was out at that point.
Hand, yeah.
And Liam Lawson does a darn good job, does consistently better than Yuki Tsunoda.
Yeah.
So Daniel Ricciardo gets healthy. He's got a longer career with podium.
With podiums right away, yeah.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, Daniel Ricciardo is healthy again. And then Christian Horner has this conversation. Is Christian Horner?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, because he's the one in charge of Red Bull Racing.
He has this closed-door conversation with Liam saying, hey, we're going with Yuki and Daniel Ricciardo. I don't understand the logic there. I don't understand the mathematics there because look, Liam Lawson's showing he can perform right away.
Yeah.
So there is certainly. I'm sorry. I can't say anything with certainty.
Sure.
In my mind, the decision was absolutely PR based because you want a Japanese fan base.
Yeah.
You want an Asian fan base.
Yes.
Do I think Yuki Tsunoda is a capable driver? Yeah, I do. And again, looking back now, as I alluded to before, his career is much younger than I originally anticipated. So I think that softens my argument against him. But is the pursuit of increased international fan base a factor? I think it absolutely is.
And I agree with you. And I think it's a little even more multifaceted, and it's something we also talked about. So with Yuki and with Logan, right? And I've given honestly more thought to it about with Logan Sargent.
Sure.
Right. And because it is, and I'm not trying to, this will kind of be our segue into from RB. Well, no, we don't want to do that yet. So with Logan Sargent, got it. He's a rookie. He's new. He can still evolve. As they're like, and as soon as you bring in Yuki, as soon as you bring in Logan, now you have all that American and all that Japanese fan base that are there to support him.
Sure.
Right. And yes,
or with Logan,
with Logan, because we're Americans, you know.
But that's the thing. But with Logan, with the hatred towards him, regardless of whether you love him or hate him, more people are watching, and that's all that matters.
He's the American, right? And so yeah, like he's my countryman. I don't like pick your other driver who's not at the very top, and I don't call him my countryman, and I don't root for him.
Oh, sure.
Right? And if you're not on my, like, and I found a way, I tried to find a way to get him on my teams, and I found a way to get Logan Sargent to be on my teams because he's my countryman, right?
Yeah.
Come on. But my personal perspective is, as soon as having Logan Sargent or Yuki Tsunoda on your team meant that you performed worse than you could with getting someone else on your team.
Yeah.
In the end, they would just, their nationality is a factor for all the other aspects of racing. But if in the end there was another American of the 600 million or whatever Americans that there are in the world, if there was another American that would be better than Logan Sargent and have the better pedigree,
take him in a
heartbeat.
Yeah.
There's not. So the argument, if we're going to accept, which we're not, but we accept the premise that they really want an American in that seat, he's still the best American, period, to be able to sit there.
Sure.
And also, as soon as there's not another, if there's another driver ready to go sit in the Logan Sargent or Yuki Tsunoda's seat, they would do it. Like there's not, and there's, what am I trying to say here? Red Bull, Baby RB and Williams are not top contending teams.
No.
They're trying to get up to finish in the standings P7 or P6. So if you're would that put you in a developmental racing team? Would that put you in a racing team that's still trying to figure out how to get a good car and how to do well? And if you are, you need somebody who's reliable, and you need somebody who is going to stay with you if you are finishing P9 in the championship as a team, and not going to jump ship and go somewhere else. And you need to have something. You need to have some reason to bring in money. You need to have some reason to get sponsorship.
Oh, absolutely.
And so guess what? What do? If you have the American on your team, well, guess what? You're Williams. You have an American on your team. That has an entire country of fan base for you, that as soon as a Logan Sargent goes to some other team, no one's going to give a credit about Williams anymore. And the same with Yuki and the same with RB. So I think when you're in the bottom 10, that matters a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because you just have to take that into account.
Oh,
otherwise, if you were to get rid of Logan Sargent and get rid of Yuki Tsunoda, who's going to come drive for RB?
Right.
You have Liam Lawson and stuff, which is fine.
Yeah.
But is he going to bring the Australian fan base? No. Right? Maybe he'll bring some, but there's plenty of then you have like Liam Lawson and Daniel Ricciardo are both Australian.
Yeah.
And I know there's other Australians driving. Oscar Piastri is Australian.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
See, so there's at least right there. Like then it's just got it. Then you have to then all we care about is performing.
Yeah.
But as soon as you aren't necessarily, if you have the car that isn't going to get necessarily into the top 10 or barely is knocking at the top 10.
Yeah.
And Yuki Tsunoda can get you that strong foothold, or you're out Yuki Tsunoda, lose all the Japanese fan base, bring in another Australian who's now one of 3 Australians in F1.
Sure.
And maybe it might get you up to P9, maybe after you have to redo all the car design to try and tailor to him, and you take that initial dip. I think if you're a Max Verstappen, if you're a Red Bull, if you're a Ferrari, then there's a lot more of get the best driver in here, let's go.
Oh, no, absolutely.
As soon as you're a lower tier team, then you got to play that sort of into it.
You do.
And in the end, as soon as it was a detriment to have Yuki Tsunoda or Logan Sargent on your team, you just wouldn't have it.
So here's a question.
Yeah.
Here's a question. So so throughout his career, he's Yuki Tsunoda's been in 70 races.
Okay.
Best position he's ever ended up in is 4th place.
Okay.
No
podium.
No podiums for him. and again, younger career, not a top tier team on his roster, and his lifetime average average position is 12.36.
Okay.
So you can count on him being in that just outside the point range, but not last. All of a sudden on his socials, he becomes an outspoken flat earther or something just kind of bizarre.
Yeah.
Does that impact his career?
I think it does.
Okay.
I think it absolutely does. I think
but he races exactly as he's been racing. Will he be in F1 next year?
I don't think he will. And my reason for saying that is it's all so heavily linked. And you and I know this as former military officers, right?
Yeah.
You can get fired, but for conduct unbecoming.
Oh,
right.
Well,
Done.
yeah. And if you're in any uniformed service, if you get arrested for any reason that you're going to show up in the newspaper for,
your unit commander has the ability.
It's not going to be Ben gets arrested.
Yeah,
it's going to be Coast Guard officer got arrested,
exactly.
or it's going to be Navy pilot gets arrested.
Yeah,
it's the entire Navy getting called to the carpet.
And I think that and where that comes from, called to the carpet, is when you're standing on the carpet in front of the table, right? So I think that as soon as you're Yuki Tsunoda, as soon as you're Logan Sargent, could Max Verstappen say he's a flat earther and maybe get away with it?
Yeah, people are going to roll their eyes and be like, "Oh man,
whatever,
God, stupid talented guy. He's a moron, but he can drive. Go ahead, you idiot.
Exactly.
Keep winning."
But as soon as that becomes a thing, as soon as you say the word Yuki Tsunoda and it comes up with something that embarrasses RB
or the FIA,
then that's it.
Yeah,
I think for any in this politically charged world right now,
oh sure,
I think that's it.
Yep.
So.
Interesting.
Yeah. But also I would say to Yuki and to definitely Logan Sargent is in this day and age, part of our ability to succeed is who we are, and meaning like who we are, our nationality and whatever. The whole, we're going to strip everything away and just have you be ability to win. Well, that's a horrible idea, because then maybe there's a lot they bring on and off the track. And, and they have the capability to evolve and all this. I don't know. For anybody who's sitting here going, the only reason they're in their seats is because of their nationality, I think it's a factor. But in the end, if it was no good to have them there, they would not be there.
And that's a great point. I'll make sure we're also walking back and saying, dude's finishing in the middle of the pack.
He is,
which is an accomplishment in that car, in this field of performance as well.
He finished.
The dude can certainly drive.
He finished next behind the only people above Yuki Tsunoda this race, and everybody else who DNF. They weren't necessarily. They were going to be behind him. Yuki Tsunoda was right behind Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, and
all right,
yeah, and we'll talk fantasy points soon. But I definitely got pulled into the whole home field advantage thing. I put Yuki on 2 of my teams, and you know what? It worked out for me.
Great.
It worked out really well.
So we'll move on to zoom out a little bit. We touched on it a little bit. RB racing.
Yeah.
All right. I am a huge fan of Daniel Ricciardo. The dude's charismatic as hell. When you sit down, you watch him talk, you just want to listen to him. And he's a solid driver. Like, look at his pedigree. He is. He bounced around because he was trying to find that team that would give him the number one spot, and it didn't work out, and drama and politics and all of that.
But that being said, the guy's had a lengthy career at this point.
He has. So when's it over, right?
Right.
And I think with RB, the fact that Daniel Ricciardo crashed, all right, got it. That was racing. I'm not too worried about it. It's a lap 1 thing, got it. But RB, they're not to the point where, first off, they're not the point that you should put him as your constructor in fantasy F1.
Oh, no, not at all.
Trying to box us out and not talk about that right now. But for RB, I think they're starting to come out of it. I think as they start to get upgrades and stuff, it'll start to improve. This is showing me that, Yuki is their RB's almost in the top 10. Granted, Alex Albon wasn't here, but that's because Alex Albon seems to be DNFing a lot, and we'll go there next. But no, I think with Williams and with RB, they're right there, and I could see as the year goes that baby RB starts to do better and get a solid foothold in the bottom top 10.
I think so. Yeah,
get a solid foothold into the top 10.
Yeah, at least hitting the points for one of their drivers, maybe once. One race at a time,
and having it be interchangeable which one it is.
And that's where we aren't yet. Is what we haven't seen with Daniel Ricciardo.
Yeah.
And what's interesting too is, understanding the close relation, the shared ownership of of RB and Red Bull.
Yeah.
Man, I thought there would be a lot closer of a link in performance between Red Bull, who is so dominant, and RB Racing. That's a point of curiosity for me in terms of how much collaboration is there, given that Christian Horner does make personnel calls for RB on occasion.
So there is a rule, and I have to look it up to know what's up. So basically, as soon as the car is more than 2 or 3 years old,
okay,
then you can just drive it all you want. Like you're not limited to track time, limited to practice time.
Oh, okay.
And I heard them, they alluded to it. So basically, and I forget if it's 2 or 3 or whatever, but as soon as a car is more than 2 or 3 years old, it's not being driven anymore. You're past it. You can have your backup drivers and your reserve drivers unlimited practice time on your track. You can't go to the actual racetracks, but you can drive it on your own practice track.
Yeah.
They can just beat the hell out of that car.
Okay.
I would be curious to take Yuki Tsunoda and honestly Logan Sargent, but Yuki Tsunoda, put him in the RB car from 2019.
The Red Bull car, or
the Red Bull car.
Okay.
The Red Bull racing car. Or because which year Max Verstappen wins for his first championship? Was that 2020, 2021? 21 or 2023? 21. 21 was when Max Verstappen first won his championship.
No. He won in 18, because I mean, I thought doesn't he have the record for the youngest win?
No, not race win, championship.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Yep.
No, that's a good point to clarify though. Whatever year he won, so 2021, that car is almost ready to be able to be freely driven by anybody.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe if I'm getting my math right, maybe this is all off base, in which so feel free to hit me up in the comments and be like, no man, here's the rule, because I love rules. But take one of those cars that Max Verstappen was dominant in.
Yeah.
Go to the track that Max Verstappen would practice in, give the car to Yuki Tsunoda, and see if he can beat Max Verstappen's time from that year.
That would be very interesting.
And the reason why is as soon as Yuki Tsunoda can drive faster in that older car than Max Verstappen could at that point, Yuki has the chops. The car's just not to where it should be.
Mm-hmm.
With Williams, do the same thing. Put him in they won't, obviously, because Williams and Red Bull.
Right.
But go back to a year where Williams was really competitive, take one of those cars.
But that's been a minute.
It's been a minute. So maybe it doesn't quite work with Williams.
No.
But with RB, definitely as soon as
that would be a very interesting litmus test.
And as soon as you test it and you're like, hey, guess what? Yuki Tsunoda in the same equipment was however close to where Max Verstappen would have been. If Yuki Tsunoda had right now raced in that car in that year, he would have placed this.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and as soon as that's strong.
That's what they did with Daniel.
Yeah.
Where he was the reserve driver for Red Bull and doing all the publicity stuff. Then they let him drive, and they were like, you know what? He's still got it. Let's throw him in RB.
And then I promise we will move on. And this is the killer part. As soon as you take Daniel Ricciardo and Yuki Tsunoda, you put them in the car from 21, let's say. I don't know if that's the rule, but you put them in the car for 2021. And on their track, they would have, if they had raced Max Verstappen, or you race whatever, you go to a track and they go ahead and try and turn in a time, and they have a time that's tied with Max Verstappen back with 21 or really close to it, then do you know it's the car, not the driver?
Yeah.
And keep them on no matter how bad they do, because the cars just aren't there.
Sure.
Or do you say, well, when you did a new driver that fits this new a new driver that fits this new kind of car, and you bump them to get the new driver.
See, that brings me back to my point, though. If there is that level of close collaboration, what are they doing differently in the RB car versus the Red Bull car?
I think it's just RV. I think that collaboration's more recent. I think that Red Bull Racing got so dominant that they acquired
AlphaTauri. Okay.
Somehow they developed that relationship now.
Yeah.
There's probably rules since they are two independent racing teams.
Okay.
But which is, so I think there's that. So there's definitely like a mentorship thing, but the Red Bull Baby RB car just isn't there yet.
Gotcha.
But imagine if you take the Baby RB drivers and put them in actual RB cars, They have to. They have to give them that time.
Exactly. Yeah. So the fundamental difference remains in the engineering teams.
Exactly.
Of RB versus Red Bull.
Because in the end, you and I can both have these, and we both know this, right? Given our former professions, that you can put two people in the exact same room, give them the exact same information, and they'll disagree.
Oh, absolutely.
So, right?
Yeah.
So as soon as you take all these drivers and it comes down to, okay, go do it. Fine. Or no, where I was going to, if you have, we have this new team, got it. Here's how we want you to race. Well, we can tell you what to do, but you have to pull from your money still. You have to do your own thing. How much can you do with the money you have right now, baby RB team?
Gotcha.
Well, you're still coming out of the dark ages of being AlphaTauri, but we can't, as Red Bull, give you some of our money because that's illegal.
Sure.
They're a different team.
Yeah.
We can give you mentorship. I can sit you down with Christian Horner and with Max Verstappen and give you all the pointers you could ever want.
Okay.
But in the end, it's up to you to make it happen.
So you get all the intangible benefits.
That's my perspective. At least. Again,
that's
sitting here.
I'm asking a fairly unanswerable question right now, and I think you're doing a hell of a job.
Oh, thank you. That's what I do.
That was good.
Right? Then we will move on to, first off, anything else for RB?
No, I'm good to go.
Williams. Oh, I'm going to make a statement because I love it.
Do it.
And you can let me know, and feel free on the comments to let me know what you think. Logan Sargent is the number one driver for Williams ahead of Alex Albon.
Ooh, okay. I want to agree with you.
Yes.
But I don't yet.
And here's my reason why.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine.
You made the statement and I got jumpy. Go ahead.
Because Alex Albon crashes. Logan Sargent doesn't. Logan Sargent spins out. He doesn't trash your cars.
How far back are we taking that?
Oh, just this year.
Okay. So 4 races in as opposed to 12 DNFs last year.
Complete recency effect.
Sure.
We're ignoring the information. I'm ignoring the information I don't want to have exist.
Okay.
So I'm not looking at last year.
Okay.
But looking at this year, first off, Williams has supply issues. They have chassis issues. They have all of this. Alex Albon's crashing at least as much as Logan Sargent is, but Alex Albon's kissing the wall. Do you right now, from a Williams standpoint, after what happened this last week, where granted it's not Alex Albon's fault that he crashed,
right? He
got bumped into. Do you, going forward, if your chassis is limited, do you now say, how about this? Maybe not to say I firmly believe my faith is absolutely in Logan Sargent over Alex Albon now. Dead straight.
Okay.
And we'll talk about Fantasy F1 in a minute, but right now, forgetting fantasy, Jason, which Williams driver will do the best? It's going to be Logan Sargent.
Okay, yeah. So interesting. Different. So next episode, different answer for you because Logan Sargent, if he starts P19, ends up P17, he gets you points, especially if he's your super cheap spare change driver. Yeah. So that's a win. But in answering this question, I don't think it's something that I can entirely fairly do with the constraints that have been put on me, because the decision to put Albon in the car last week was based on the previous year.
Sure.
You have a very, very, very logic-driven principle, and I'm blanking on his name, but it's the second year for this principle.
Mm-hmm.
He's going statistics all the way.
Yeah.
Engineering, design, math, all the way. He's moneyballing the hell out of Formula One based on what he's got at his disposal.
Yeah.
Oh no. At his disposal. Oh. I want a refund on my coffee, Starbucks.
No, you're good.
Okay. So the decision to make that replacement is based on last year, which even though it didn't pan out, Albon didn't get you any points, the logic was there for that choice to be made. And then when you're driving with only one car, Albon is also hamstrung by the fact that he's got to be more conservative because you've got supply.
You can't crash
you've got Williams supply chain issues.
Yeah.
You cannot DNF after you've been given the only remaining car.
Yeah.
So you're going to drive a little bit more grandma style.
Sure.
So I get that. Then this week happens and Daniel Ricciardo happens to Alex.
Yeah.
That sucks. Totally not Alex's fault.
You can't plan for that. Not his fault.
Right. And then you look at Logan, who got P17 only because the previous three people not only, but certainly a factor that the only people that he beat all DNF'd.
That's true. And he did spin out. Sure, in my argument, he didn't hit the wall,
And
but he spun out
spin out,
solo.
but yeah,
Solo.
So I think there are enough circumstances that still to me spell out that Alex Albon is the stronger driver.
Okay.
That if all of a sudden at FIA goes, surprise, everyone gets one driver.
Yeah. You think Alex Albon stays?
I'm going with Alex Albon. Oh God, Alex Albon.
Mm-hmm.
But I like Logan Sargent. I think he has done worlds better this year already compared to last year.
Yeah.
I want the guy to succeed.
Sure.
Because America, and because like he's whether by whether for PR reasons or other he's on the grid. I want him to succeed, but from a data driven perspective, and a track record perspective, I think if everyone has only one driver, Alex Albon would be my guy.
Yeah.
Next week.
I will, again, this is what we talked about. One of the great things about our former professions, we can look at the exact same information and come up with two different answers.
Yeah.
I agree with everything you said.
Sure.
I feel that I would apply, and here's a way to make the arguments. All right. This is not, I like him, I don't. I agree. You and I are on the exact same page.
But that's fine. We can do that. And what's weird about us is we both come from a highly analytical profession, and I think we're both romantics.
We are,
which is such an odd mix.
It is. Like, we want that happy. Yeah.
I could talk about Valtteri Bottas and how much I like that guy, but I can't trust him as a racer. But don't get rid of him because I love him. But
and my thing. So I put the fact that he crashed, that Alex Albon crashed.
Yeah.
And again, and this is my hard part. Do you scrub it from the record? Do you overlook it since the fact that he got hit by somebody else?
Yeah.
Or do you have to look at it because he was the driver, he was the car, he was there? I don't know the answer to that. I am going to say, but primarily because it suits my own evil purposes, that because of how many DNFs he's gotten, because of how rough he's been on the cars this year, I think that Logan Sargent is the better driver for Williams right now, because Logan Sargent is trying to evolve, coming off of a really horrible rookie season. He's trying to evolve. He's taking Williams is focusing on Alex Albon. Logan Sargent's like, okay, I'll sit here and be patient.
Sure.
He spins out, doesn't hit the wall like he used to, which is good. He's changing, he's evolving, it's positive.
He is.
And Alex Albon, if he is, as soon as you're the leader of something, then everybody looks to the rest of the wings and says, okay, well, this guy can maybe do better than you, even though you're the leader. You're the one who has to actually make it happen. The fact that they gave him his teammate's car and he didn't get into the points, well, that's a huge question. The fact that he has crashed out and they have given him this stuff and he hasn't done it, to me, it's like, dude, stop giving Alex Albon all the faith. If he has his chance, at least equal. How about that? At least equal with Logan Sargent. If Alex Albon scorches his chance, that means Sargent gets his chance.
Yeah. No, okay, I'm with you there. I don't. So I think where we fundamentally disagree is that in Japan, we disagree on whether he scorched his chance or not.
That's true. And that comes down to the, again, this is probably a very military way to look at it, is you were there, it happened on your watch, bad on you.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And that's very much a government thing. It is. So for me, we've seen those leaders. We've had those leaders and those friends who were just in the wrong time at the wrong place. Guess what? You're a unit commander. 3 of your guys got a DUI in one weekend. That means
you're
you
the
have
OD
bad
that
culture.
day.
You're out. Yeah. You're the OD and that's it.
We're pulling your qual.
We're pulling your qual because something happened on your watch. You didn't have any. If any of us were in that position, we all would have been toasted.
Yep.
But you're that person, so it's your fault. And I think that with Alex Albon, there's enough things happening that at very least it's one-on-one equal with Sargent.
Sure.
I think this year Sargent is showing enough. He is trying to change. He's putting forth a good effort, and he's spinning out, not hitting the wall.
That's true, and I think there's a whole separate conversation on the fundamentally insane learning curve that there is in being an F1 driver, and Logan Sargent went to the Launchpad McQuack School of Hard Knocks there.
And
he is
Launchpad McQuack.
no, I mean, no, I remember I have this weird core memory of watching Darkwing Duck.
I love Darkwing Duck.
Launchpads. He crashes his helicopter into a building, and he pulls out like this checklist. He's like, never crashed a helicopter before. I only need a few more vehicles, and I'm all set. But again, Logan Sargent has spent so much time in the suspect list that you're like, oh, there was a crash. Was it Logan?
Was it Logan?
I don't need any more information. But he's at that point where it's like I've done everything wrong in so many creative ways that now I know all the things not to do.
Yeah.
And if you can last long enough in F1 to have done those things, man, you become a really good driver.
Right.
And so maybe we are at that turning point or that crest of that learning curve where he's just like, nope. I've spun out that way before. I've locked up that way before.
I'm not going to do it.
I've looked the wrong direction that time. I was texting on my phone during that turn. However many ways he's found to crash, he knows all the things not to do now.
Yeah.
He's a kinesthetic F1 driver, which is like the worst way to learn if you're an F1 driver.
But no, to that point though, as soon as when I was watching the race and you see all the smoke and all the whatever, like, oh, it was a Williams.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, Logan, please say you didn't do that. And then like, it's Albon. And I'm like, oh, yay.
Right.
Because I didn't have him on my team. And it's like, and Ricardo. I'm like, oh, crap. He's all over my team. Okay.
No, he set the low standard. So anytime he doesn't crash, Logan did great.
And this is a huge example. Then I think that's probably if this episode, since we made it through our list. But this is a primary example of when somebody was it attribution error, the suspect prospect thing.
Yeah.
Where as soon as it's something I want, well, if I get something good, well, then it's because I'm wonderful.
Right.
If something bad happens to me, it's not my fault. If you get something good, it's like, oh well, he just had to hand it to him.
Yeah. No, that's the crux of the list.
I want Logan Sargent to do great. I think he's a great driver. I think he needs to get the right car, and I think he needs to get to survive this hump.
Yeah.
And then he's going to be great. So he's my countryman. I want him to do well, and I genuinely think he will do well. He just has to, if he can survive the figuring it out phase. So I want him to be there. So that's why right now I'm like, no, there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way.
Oh yeah. So I'm on the train. I'm on the Sargent train. But again, if the circumstances were, it's silly week. Everyone gets one driver. I'm taking it out,
No, I hear you. Well, that is actually that brings us to the end of our target list for this episode.
Yeah.
Do you have any parting shots or saved rounds before we call it?
I do. If you have been listening to this whole episode, first of all, thank you. Second of all, please go on your podcast platform of choice and leave us a decent review. That helps us reach more people. And I will shamelessly ask for that every episode. So listen for it.
All right. Cheers.